Dean Carter, and all the Morehouse College personnel, staff, academic, and students, Dr. Shahan and Dr. Penaskovich, and all the representatives of the Atlantic Institute, my beloved sisters and brothers in monotheism and in humanity. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom, shalom, yom tov. Peace be upon you all. Since yesterday morning, I felt going through a metamorphosis at that time when I really thought I did everything I could and I am finished. The inspiration started with Dean Carter. In the last few months, I have begun thinking seriously of Hajj, of a pilgrimage to Mecca. And I feel that yesterday I did a very special pilgrimage, guided by Dean Carter through the chapel. I started being interested in peace not through spirituality, but through politics because of the Arab-Israeli conflict, which became later the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which is the real conflict. And then I used all the tools given to me by distinguished European professors of mine when I was a graduate student in Paris. And then I discovered that the problem was not really political, it was religious. And this is how I began to enter the path and more complicated issue about religion and politics. Now, if I followed our esteemed colleague, Dr. Carbo, and the idea of silence in dialogue, I could stand here for a few minutes and then the chairman will understand I have nothing to say. Go back to my seat. But that would be bad. So what I'm going to do is to tell you, I have this good habit, I hope it's a good habit. I give you the plan of what I plan to write, knowing that I could not read the whole paper. I have an introduction and 4 parts. Part 1, from dialogue to trialogue, which will add more to your definitions. A, the emergence of the categorical imperative for interfaith dialogue. B, Vatican II impact on interfaith dialogue. Part 2, sacred space and time in Jewish-Muslim relations. A, space and time in Islamic sociology. B, Islamic time. Part 3, Islam in Judaism and Judaism in Islam. A, Arab-Jewish Islamic intellectual common heritage. B, ethics in Islam, jihad or salam. Part 4, from jihad to ijtihad. A, the evolution of Quranic interpretations. B, the militarization of the ideology of jihad. And a conclusion. I grew up in a very cosmopolitan society, Tunisia, where the daily consciousness of sisterhood and brotherhood between Muslims, Jews, and Christians was a fait accompli. And when I left Tunis for my studies in Paris, I discovered anti-Semitism, which was for me really a surprise that it was in Europe. I came here very honored and very humbled when I found myself among these host of wonderful scholars, fellows who believe in one another, and at least who believe in the intention, niyyah in Arabic, which is so important in Islamic thought, that there is no action that is good if it is not the reflection, the mirror of its intention. So I would like to express, since the title was A Muslim Interfaith Itinerary, I would like to start with a few remarks concerning the history of my journey on the path of peace and my awareness of otherness. Although my public commitment to peace and interfaith dialogue started in the early 1960s, it's not in the paper. I used to organize in Paris secret meetings between Israeli and Arab students. This was in the early 60s to talk about the problem, before the 67 war. A chance to be at the UN as an intern, a visit to 2 American universities as young Fulbright scholars in the mid-60s. And probably the most significant turning point came with a special invitation from the US Interreligious Committee for Peace in the Middle East to join the first American Jewish Christian Muslim delegation for peace, supported then by former President Jimmy Carter, which is an honor to Atlanta again. That opportunity was like a divine gift because I found myself introduced to the Shalom Hartman Institute in Jerusalem, founded by the late and very regretted Rabbi Dr. David Hartman. Almost at the same time, a conference on tolerance, organized by the Euro-Arab University with some support from UNESCO, the University of Marmara and the University of Istanbul, crystallized and enhanced my academic and vocational commitment to peace through education, as we heard so much yesterday, and through interfaith dialogue. A new moment and catalyst of my engagement was nurtured by the 2 first World Congresses, Imams and Rabbis for Peace, organized by the Fondation Hommes de Parole, men and women of their word, which were co-sponsored by the kings of Morocco, of Belgium, and Spain. The first one was in Brussels, the second in Sevilla. I must also say that I am indebted to the Istanbul Center in Tampa, which invited the neighborhood to its Meet and Know Your Neighbor for many years. And then I'm very grateful to them for the opportunity to have been in Turkey, meeting and experiencing the genuine Turkish hospitality. I am going to read part of my paper, hoping to respect the time. The emergence of the categorical imperative for interfaith dialogue. According to Richard Newhouse, shortly before his death, André Malraux stated that the 21st century will be religious or it will not be at all. Should the case be correct, it would be imperative to establish and institutionalize a dialogue between religions. Although Jewish-Christian dialogue had already started since Vatican II, Jewish-Muslim dialogue was, assuming it really existed, still embryonic. For Paul Nitter, who explained how an urging and pluralistic liberative dialogue, he came to believe that it had to be globally responsible, correlational dialogue among religions. For him, a correlational dialogue of religions affirms the plurality of religions, not because it is a fact of life and the stuff of relationships. A correlational model seeks to promote authentic, truly mutual dialogical relationships among the religious communities of the world, analogous to the kind of human relationships we seek to nurture among our friends and relatives. These are relationships in which persons speak honestly with each other, and listen authentically. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Wow. When asked what he thought about Professor Huntington's Clash of Civilizations, the Honorable, the Venerable Fethullah Gulen answered this way: if some people are planning such a thing based on their current dreams and making claims on the subject, and if such a wave has risen and is on its way, then before we suffer such a clash, let's put a bigger wave in front of it and break their wave. It is irrefutable that classical Islamic thought gave a predominant place to the concept of tolerance, before some leaders distorted it for opportunistic reasons. Even in the context of a critique of the Arab-Israeli conflict, some wrote, like Dr. Ismail Farouqi, he said, there is no room left for any equivocation regarding the paramount importance of tolerance, not only in Islam, but also in the other monotheistic religions. Whether we like it or not, we, the adherents of the Abrahamic faiths, Jews, Christians, and Muslims, are doomed to coexist for long into the future. This prophetic statement made many years ago is corroborated today, this month, by a recent survey of the Pew Research Center about religion surviving for the rest of the 21st century. I used to brag about Islamic tolerance. I was proud of the symbiosis, what Professor Lewis called the symbiosis in Andalusia between the three faiths, when Jews, Muslims, Christians sometimes prayed in the same sacred space. But I grew up, I am evolving toward the point of really thinking that tolerance is no longer, in my humble view, is no longer something to brag about. I also am a believer today in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, where it is not a luxury that people, especially minority groups, religious, linguistic, ethnic, as we see it being happening today in the Middle East, between Muslim societies, acceptance is fundamental. The Arab Spring that started in Tunisia has been defended by women, just to give a nice response to our ambassador of yesterday. And at this time, critical time, it was thanks to women, Tunisian women, who inherited that wonderful gift from Bourguiba, who made women free from their fathers in terms of marriage, free from their husbands in case they decided to have good reason to divorce. I would like to conclude, Mr. Chairman. I have about now 3 minutes. Yeah. It is remarkable that the principles of religion have a kind of flux and reflux in the human mind, and that men have a natural tendency to rise from idolatry to theism, and to sink again from theism to idolatry. The quote is longer from David Hume. There is a very fundamental idea in Islamic thought and Quranic one. Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma bin-nasi hatta yughayyiru ma bi nafsihim. And verily, never will Allah change the condition of a people until they change it themselves. On the other hand, how could any disciple or aspiring disciple of Dr. Martin Luther King's surrender to despair in the very tragic days of April 2015. Without remembering his mentor's words at the Nobel Prize ceremony of 1964. And the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "I believe that even amid today's mortar bursts and whining bullets, there is still hope for a brighter tomorrow. I believe that wounded justice lying prostrate on the blood-flowing streets of our nations can be lifted from this dust of shame to reign supreme among the children of man." End quote. El Kamalu Lillah, only God is perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.